The retired librarian was cataloging old books when a photograph fell from between the pages. 1963 Berlin, Checkpoint Charlie. When he realized the young soldier in the photo was himself, his hands began to shake. He had kept this secret for 50 years. Looking at that photograph, Henry was transported back 50 years. In 1963, he was only 26 years old, a young Army intelligence officer stationed at Checkpoint Charlie, a ghost operative with the codename Thompson. The day that photo was taken, he had saved the life of a family escaping from East Berlin. Stasi agents were pursuing them, an unstoppable chase. That night, Henry had risked his identity, jeopardized the operation, but he had gotten that family safely across. Now, as the photograph trembled in his hands, he remembered that family's little girl. She was 8 years old, looking at him with frightened eyes. "Danke, Herr Soldat," she had said. "Thank you, soldier." Henry had never forgotten that child, but how had this photograph ended up here, among the old books of a small-town library? And more importantly, was that little girl still alive? Welcome to The Last Stand. Have you ever researched the Cold War period, or do you have relatives who lived through that time? Share your experiences in the comments. Henry Schmidt had been volunteering at the Cedar Valley Library for 20 years. At 76, he was tall, white-haired, and gentle. The townspeople knew him as quiet and knowledgeable. Henry would come to the library every morning at 9 and stay until 6 in the evening. He would catalog old books, organize new donations, and help visitors. He was particularly interested in history books, World War II, the Cold War period. He was very knowledgeable about these subjects. But there was something unusual about Henry. He was very good with German. Sometimes German tourists would come to the library, and Henry would speak fluently with them. When they asked, "How do you know German so well?" he would only say, "I studied hard in my youth." Henry didn't talk much about his past. He said he was a retired civil servant. When they asked which department he had worked in, he would brush it off saying, "Office work, not very interesting." He lived alone. He had been married and lost his wife 10 years ago. They had no children. The library was his second home. Books, silence, peace. At 76, this was what he wanted. On the morning of November 15th, Henry had arrived early at the library as usual. A large book donation was coming that day. An elderly woman had passed away, and her family had given all her books to the library. Boxes filled the library. Henry began opening them alone. Most were old novels, history books, encyclopedias. But one box was different. It contained photographs, letters, documents. Henry began examining them carefully. What were these documents doing at the library? They seemed like personal belongings. The family must have mixed them in by mistake. That's when a photograph fell from the pages of an old history book, black and white, dated 1963. Checkpoint Charlie was written on it. Henry looked at the photograph. His heart stopped. The young soldier in the photo was himself. 26 years old, in uniform, with a serious look. The Berlin Wall was visible in the background. His hands began to shake. How was this photograph here? For 50 years, no one had been aware of this photograph's existence. So who had taken it? Who had kept it? And why had it surfaced now? Henry looked around. There was no one else in the library. He put the photograph in his pocket. This secret must not be revealed. Henry Schmidt's real story had begun in 1961. He had joined Army intelligence when he was only 24 years old. The year the Berlin Wall was built. The Cold War was at its peak then. Crossings between East and West Berlin were controlled. Thousands of East Germans were trying to escape to the West. Henry's job was to organize these escapes. His code name was Thompson. No one knew his real identity. He had secret contacts in East Berlin. He would direct refugee families to safe crossing points. The Stasi, East German secret police, were constantly pursuing him. From 1961 to 1975, Henry had done this job for 14 years. He had saved hundreds of families. But every operation carried the risk of death. If caught, he could be executed for espionage. In 1975, the operation had ended. The Berlin Wall was still standing, but the political situation had changed. Henry had returned to America, taken a new identity, and transitioned to civilian life. No one knew who he was. Even his wife hadn't known. In official records, Henry Schmidt had never been in Berlin. He had simply been born in Wisconsin, worked as an office clerk, and retired. But the past hadn't been completely erased. That photograph was proof of it. Someone knew Henry's real identity. When Henry got home, he examined the photograph again. On the back was writing, Agent Thompson, 1963, Greta's Rescue. It was written in German. Greta, Henry remembered. In the summer of 1963, the little girl from one of the families he had helped escape. She was 8 years old, blonde, blue-eyed. Her father was an East German scientist, a nuclear physics expert. The Stasi had put them under close surveillance. Henry had never forgotten that night. The family was hiding in a house near Checkpoint Charlie. Stasi agents were sweeping the neighborhood. Henry had taken the risk, exposed his own identity, and gotten the family directly to the safe zone. Little Greta had hugged him that night and said, Danke, Herr Soldat. Thank you, soldier. So how had this photograph ended up here? Henry researched the name of the family who had made the donation, Margot Weber. She had passed away last month. German origin, had immigrated to America in the 1960s. Henry's heart raced. Margot Weber, that name sounded familiar. Could she be connected to Greta's family? The next day, Henry did more research. He found Margot Weber's obituary. Among the survivors was listed daughter Greta Mueller. Henry was shocked. Greta was still alive. And after her mother's death, she might have sent that photograph to the library among the donation boxes. 3 days later, while Henry was working at the library, a woman entered. In haar 60's, blonde, blue-eyed. Henry recognized her immediately. It was Greta. After 50 years, she was now a middle-aged woman, but those blue eyes were the same. The frightened 8-year-old child was now a confident, peaceful adult. Hello, said the woman. I'm Greta Mueller. My mother, Margot Weber, passed away last month. We made a book donation to you. Henry's hand trembled. Yes, they were very beautiful books. My condolences. Thank you. Actually, I came looking for something. There might be some old photographs missing from my mother's belongings. Henry hesitated. He could understand that Greta was looking for that photograph. But should Henry give it to her? This would reveal his identity. What kind of photographs? He asked. From the 1960s, from Berlin. My mother lived there during that period. They're very important to the family. Henry was experiencing internal conflict. Those photographs were Greta's right. But Henry's security. Let me look into it, he said. Maybe they got mixed in by mistake. Greta smiled. Thank you very much. This is very important to me. Henry remembered that smile. 50 years ago, when they had crossed to the safe zone, little Greta had smiled the same way. That night, Henry thought at home. Should he give the photograph to Greta? This would reveal his past. 50 years of secrecy would end. But on the other hand, this photograph was Greta's right. It was her family's memories. And Henry had saved her life. Didn't this give him a debt to her? In the morning, Henry had made his decision. He would give the photograph to Greta. But how would he explain it? When Greta came, Henry took out the photograph. Is this what you were looking for? Greta's eyes lit up. Yes, this is exactly. Oh my God. She examined the photograph more closely. This soldier looks familiar. Henry's heart was beating. Really? Yes, my mother always told me. In 1963, an American soldier saved our family. She called him Agent Thompson. Could this be him? Henry remained silent. Greta continued. My mother never forgot that man. She called him our life-saver. When I was little, she always taught me to pray for him. Henry's eyes filled with tears. For 50 years, he hadn't known that Greta's family had been praying for him. This must be a very important memory. Henry said, the most important. If it weren't for that man, I wouldn't be here now. My family would have been killed. Henry had now made his decision. He had to tell the truth. Greta, Henry said slowly, I need to tell you something. Yes? Henry took a deep breath. The soldier in this photograph is me. Greta looked shocked. What? But this is impossible. You're a librarian. I was Agent Thompson. I was the one who got your family through Checkpoint Charlie in 1963. Greta looked at the photograph, then at Henry. Now she could see the resemblance. 50 years difference, but the same eyes, the same posture. You? Is it really you? Is it really you? Yes. My code name was Thompson. My real name is Henry Schmidt. I served in Berlin for 14 years. I saved hundreds of families like yours. Tears poured from Greta's eyes. Mein Gott, you are my lifesaver. Henry was crying too. You're that little girl. You said dank, Herr Soldat. I remember. I hugged you. You were my hero. Greta stood up and hugged Henry. After 50 years, they had reunited. My mother never forgot you. Greta said. She would pray for you every night. She would say, thank Agent Thompson. Now I can finally thank you in person. Henry was experiencing the most emotional moment of his life. 50 years of secrecy had ended, and he had never imagined it would end so beautifully. In the following hours, Henry and Greta talked at the library. Greta told the story she had heard from her mother Margot. Henry also explained how those nights had gone. I was so scared that night. Greta said, Stasi agents were searching our house. My father had escaped from the laboratory. If they found us. They wouldn't have found you, Henry said. I wouldn't have allowed it. But you took a risk too. Why? Why did you save us? Henry thought. Because it was the right thing to do. Protecting innocence was my job. You were only 8 years old. My family was able to build a new life in America because of you. My father taught at the university. My mother became a nurse. I became a doctor. Henry smiled with pride. A doctor? Yes, a pediatrician. I heal children. I'm giving other children the second chance you gave me. This moved Henry deeply. The little girl he had saved had now become a doctor who saved other children. Do you have children? Henry asked. I have 2 sons, Thomas and Michael, both in college. I always told them about you. Calling you grandmother's lifesaver. In Henry's lonely life, it suddenly felt as if he had a family. I'd like to meet them. He said, Of course. Would you come to dinner tonight? My family will want to meet you. After 50 years, Henry had a family. The continuation of the family he had saved. That evening, Henry went to Greta's house. For the first time in 25 years, he had been invited to someone's home. Greta's husband Robert and 2 sons Thomas, 22, and Michael, 19, were there. Children. Greta said, This is your grandmother's lifesaver I always told you about. Thomas and Michael looked at Henry with admiration. Really? Are you the one who saved our grandmother from East Berlin? Yes, Henry said modestly. It was a long time ago. Wow. Michael said, A real agent. How was it? Was it dangerous? Henry told stories. How he conducted secret operations, how he saved families, how he escaped from the Stasi. So why didn't you ever tell anyone? Robert asked. For security reasons. The operations were classified. They were things that shouldn't be talked about. But you can talk about it now, right? Thomas said. The Cold War is over. Henry thought. I guess I can talk about it now, but I've been used to silence for 50 years. Greta put her hand on Henry's hand. You're not alone anymore. You're part of our family. Henry realized at that moment that he was experiencing the happiest moment of his life. For 50 years he had hidden his identity. He had lived alone, but now he had a family. The family of the people he had saved. Throughout the meal, Henry talked a lot. He hadn't been this open in years. The family embraced him, answered his questions, listened to his stories. The next day, when Henry went to the library, he felt different. The 50-year burden had lifted from his shoulders. He was no longer hiding his identity. Library director Linda Harrison came to him. Henry, I got a strange phone call yesterday. Someone named Greta Mueller called. Do you know her? Yes, I know her. She said very interesting things about you. Cold War period Berlin, secret operations. Is this true? Henry hesitated. It was time to tell the truth now. Yes, it's true. I served in Army intelligence from 1961 to 1975 in Berlin. We were rescuing East German refugees. Linda looked at him in shock. We've been working together for 20 years. You never said this. I couldn't say it. They were classified operations. But you can say it now? Yes. And maybe I should. Linda got excited. Henry, this is incredible. A real Cold War hero lives in our town. People should know this. Henry hesitated. I don't know. I don't want to attract attention. But this is history, Henry. You're part of history. Especially the young generation should know. The Cold War is just something they read about in books. Henry thought. Maybe Linda was right. Maybe it was time to share his experiences. What do I need to do? First, let's talk to the local journalist. Then maybe you can give a talk to students at school. Henry was stepping into a new chapter of his life. Riverside Gazette journalist Sarah Mitchell came to the library to interview Henry. She was a young woman, a history enthusiast. Mr. Schmidt, I heard your story. 14 years of secret operations in Berlin. This is incredible. Would you tell me about it? Henry told his story. Cold War tension, the Berlin Wall, escaping families, Stasi pursuit, dangerous operations. How many families do you estimate you saved? I don't know the exact number. Maybe 300, 400 families. Each was a different operation. Why did you do this work? Because it was the right thing to do. They were innocent people fleeing for freedom. There were children among them. Were you ever caught? A few times almost, but I was lucky. Or experienced. So why did you decide to speak now? Henry talked about Greta. How they reunited, how the photograph came to light. Greta is now a doctor. She heals children. The child I saved is now saving other children. This makes me very happy. Sarah was impressed. This is a wonderful story. People need to know. The article was published the next day. Headline: The Secret Hero in Our Library. 50-Year Cold War Secret Revealed. The article told Henry's story in detail. The townspeople were shocked. The quiet librarian they had known for 20 years was actually a historical hero. After the article was published, the library was flooded with visitors. Everyone wanted to talk to Henry. Old veterans came. What was it like to serve during the Cold War, they asked. Young students came. What was the Berlin Wall like? Were Stasi agents really scary? German origin families came. Our relatives had also escaped during that period. Maybe you saved them? Henry patiently listened to everyone and answered their questions. For the first time, he was talking so openly about his past. Mayor Agent Thompson also came. Mr. Schmidt, I heard your story. We didn't know such a hero lived in our town. I just did my job. Henry said, No, this is much more than that. You saved hundreds of lives. This should be honored. It's not necessary. I don't want to attract attention. But this is history, and especially the young generation should know. They should learn what the Cold War meant. The mayor continued, We want you to give a talk to high school students as part of history class. Henry hesitated. But then he remembered Greta's words. You're not alone anymore. Okay, he said. I'll give a talk. This would be a new page in Henry's life. After being silent for 50 years, it was now time to speak. Henry's talk at Cedar Valley High School generated great interest. The auditorium was packed. Students, teachers, parents. Everyone wanted to listen to the Cold War hero. I'm not going to tell you a war story. Henry began. I'm going to tell you a story of humanity. Families who risked their lives for freedom. Parents who would risk everything to save their children. The students listened carefully. Henry told concrete stories. There was an 8-year-old girl, Greta. Her father was a scientist. The Stasi wanted to catch them. That night I took Greta in my arms and got her to the safe zone. 50 years later, that girl became a doctor. Now she's saving other children. A student asked, Were you ever scared? Of course I was scared, but fear shouldn't stop you. It takes courage to do the right thing. Why did you never marry, have a family? Henry was a little sad. My job was too dangerous. Starting a family wouldn't have been fair. I wouldn't have put them at risk. Do you regret it? Henry thought. No, because I saved hundreds of families. They're like my family. At the end of the talk, the students gave him a standing ovation. Henry was moved. For the first time, he had spoken in front of such a large crowd. A teacher approached. Mr. Schmidt, the students were very impressed. These kinds of real stories are very valuable for them. I hope it was useful. Very useful. The things they read in history books seemed much more real coming from your mouth. After the school talk, Henry's story spread even more. Journalists from other cities came. Television news was made. Mayor Thompson formed a committee. We must honor Henry Schmidt. This man is a historical hero. Veteran organizations showed interest. We must not forget Cold War veterans. They also fought. Greta also joined the committee. Henry is my lifesaver. I want to see him honored. But Henry was hesitant. I don't want a big ceremony. Keep it simple. Henry, Mayor Thompson said, don't just think about yourself. There are other Cold War veterans. They will take courage from your story too. What do you mean? Many veterans live quietly. They don't talk about their service. By speaking up, you set an example for them, Henry thought. Maybe they were right. He had remained silent for 50 years. Maybe other veterans were also remaining silent. Okay, he said, but don't make it too big. It will be town-wide, on Veterans Day, at Cedar Valley Community Center, Henry agreed. For the first time in his life, an honor ceremony would be held for him. At 76, after 50 years, preparations began. Local newspapers reported. Veteran organizations were invited. Other families that Henry had saved began to be searched for. Because Greta wasn't the only one. Henry had saved hundreds of families. Maybe some of them were still alive. A week before the ceremony, Greta called Henry. Henry, I have a surprise for you. What surprise? Come to the library. A few people want to see you. When Henry went to the library, he experienced a great shock. 5 elderly people were waiting there, all in their 70s, 80s. Henry, Greta said, these are the other families you saved. Henry couldn't believe it. Is this real? An elderly man stepped forward. Agent Thompson, I'm Klaus Weber. We escaped with my family in 1965. You got us through Checkpoint Charlie. A woman added, I'm Ingrid Mueller. We escaped with my husband and 2 children in 1969. You saved us. Henry couldn't believe his eyes. After 50 years, he was reuniting with the people he had saved. How did you find me? He asked. Klaus explained. We saw the news in the newspaper. We looked at the photograph. We recognized you. Then we contacted Greta. We were all looking for you. Ingrid said. But we only knew the name Agent Thompson. We didn't know your real name. Henry was moved. I remember all of you. Klaus, you were an engineer. Ingrid, you were a nurse. Yes, you remember us all. This was an incredible moment for Henry. He was meeting the people he had wondered about for 50 years. Were they alive? Were they happy? What kind of lives had they built in America? Now he was getting his answers. On Veterans Day morning, Cedar Valley Community Center was packed. 300 people had come. Veterans, families, townspeople, students. When Henry took the stage, he received great applause. For the first time in 50 years, he was receiving so much appreciation. Mayor Thompson spoke. Today we honor Henry Schmidt. For 14 years, he served on the front lines of the Cold War. He saved hundreds of innocent lives. Greta took the stage. Henry didn't just save my life. He saved my entire family's life. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. Klaus, Ingrid, and other saved families also spoke. Each told how Henry had changed their lives. He wasn't just a soldier, Klaus said. He was like an angel. He was a light of hope in the dark night. A retired colonel from Army intelligence also came. Henry Schmidt is one of America's invisible heroes. The Cold War was fought differently. Secret, dangerous, unappreciated, but so important. When it was Henry's turn to speak, he stood up. I just did my duty. But today I understand that this duty was very important, because here, I'm meeting the families I saved. They are happy, successful, peaceful. This is my real reward. Standing ovation. Henry was experiencing the most proud moment of his life. The municipality gave him a plaque, to Henry Schmidt, Cold War hero, honorary citizen of our town. In the days following the ceremony, Henry's life completely changed. He had now become the most beloved person in the town. Visitors came to the library every day. Veteran organizations offered him to be a consultant. We want you to give talks to other Cold War veterans. Henry accepted. The period of silence was over. The period of speaking had begun. Greta and her family had become family with Henry. They ate together every Sunday. Henry was no longer alone. Grandpa Henry, Thomas and Michael would say. They were like his real grandsons. Klaus, Ingrid, and other families also began to stay in touch. They created a WhatsApp group, Agent Thompson's Family. At 76, Henry had a large family. There was no blood relation, but there was a bond of love. One day, Greta asked, "Henry, do you regret it, being secret for 50 years?" Henry thought, "No, because those 50 years were a preparation period. Now, I have stories to tell, and I have a family to listen. You're not just Agent Thompson anymore. You're Grandpa Henry." Henry smiled. He was living the most beautiful period of his life. At 76, after 50 years of secrecy, his true identity had emerged. And this identity wasn't just a secret agent. He was also a father, grandfather, teacher, an inspiring person. If you enjoy these powerful stories, don't forget to subscribe to the Last Stand channel. We'll continue bringing you more hero stories every day.